All right, welcome to CM's Garage. Today I have for you the B-17 instrument panel that I built. I'm gonna go ahead and do just a quick overview of the panel. And then once I'm done with that, I have a bunch of pictures from the build, so I'll do like a slideshow, kind of a voiceover explaining how I built it. Okay, so you can see the B-17 instrument panel started out as a cardboard template. I was able to figure out the sizing by looking at schematics of the B-17 panel online and the size of the gauges that I had purchased. And by looking at the size of the gauge, I was able to figure out the proportions and get the exact sizing. This is the 3 1/8 inch drill saw that I used to drill out the holes for the gauges in the MDF board that I used for the face of the panel. You'll see here I'm fitting a couple of the gauges, getting the sizing fit right. And then this is the face, almost complete. I still have a few more holes to drill. Some of the first gauges that I had purchased, most of them are off of eBay, or all of them are off of eBay. This is the actual structure of the instrument panel, which I built out of, I made out of 1/4 inch plywood. I had to go and cut away the face of the actual structure in order to allow room for the gauges to go through and mount onto the MDF board. I went ahead and sprayed the panel itself, the structure itself, with an olive drab flat paint, and the face of the panel is painted with a flat black. Here we go. I'm installing one of the first gauges, the oil pressure gauge there. More gauges that I had purchased. And I'm at this point now, I'm spray painted. I taped off and spray painted the indicator lines on the engine instrument side of the panel itself. Those are the lines that surround the engine instrument gauges. This is the panel mostly painted, and the identification plates screwed onto the left side. There's some of the hardware that I use, mostly just off-the-shelf hardware from Lowe's or Home Depot. You can see over on the left side there's a white voltage gauge. The drill is blocking it there, but I ended up switching that out. So over time, as I purchased stuff and then I found better things, I kind of swapped some things out. There's an ILS gauge that I have there on the left side. You can see I ended up replacing that with an actual period correct one. So the project kind of evolved over time. That last picture you can see is a top view of the instrument panel. You can see how deep some of these gauges actually go. That's why you need a lot of room behind them. This is a gauge that I had opened up to do a repair. Be very careful. This one did not contain radium, but some of these gauges, or most of them, contain radium, so I highly recommend do not open them. That's the disclaimer. Here is the engine instrument side, mostly complete. At this point, I'm building the engine starting panel out of 1/2 inch plywood and the MDF board for the front of it. That did evolve some over time. I was experimenting with different types of console boxes. For the center, I ended up just, you'll see in this next picture here, I ended up just building the console box from scratch from 1/2 inch plywood, and then I used MDF board on top. This is the indicator light. And now at this point, it's evolving along. It's starting to look like getting close to the finished product. More of the center console box with the fuel shutoff switches. Okay, if you take a look over on the right on the engine starting panel, I actually made that out of wood, the actual faceplate itself, and ended up going to an aluminum plate that I had made, which I felt looked more realistic to the actual B-17 panel. And you can see over on the right now the aluminum plate that I had sprayed black and left like an aluminum border, which closely resembles the actual panel itself. So I really appreciate you watching. That's not the end of the video, but that's the end of this voiceover.
What I'm gonna do here is you're gonna be roll into a video of me actually filming the panel and describing it some more. So enjoy. Thank you so much for watching.
So we'll kind of just go briefly through the instruments and controls. Here's your fire extinguisher panel, your engine starting panel. Up here you have your oil dilution switches to dilute the engine, the oil in case of cold weather. You have your carburetor air filters over here. As we go on, some of my decals are falling off. As we move up here, on the right side, you see all your engine instruments. We have our carburetor air temperatures, engine 1, 2, 3, and 4, cylinder temperatures, oil temps, engines 1, 2, 3, and 4. As we move over here, we have our fuel quantity gauge. So as you flip from tank to tank, you can see it actually rotates the fuel quantity indication and displays how much gas is in that tank. Now the B-17 fuel gauge would look exactly like this, function in the same way, except it would have 2 more tanks here, a total of 6. The B-17 gauge panel or the fuel quantity gauge is really difficult to find. So I ended up getting one. I think this is from more like a C-47. So as we back out here, oil temperature, flap indications, oil pressure, engines 1 through 4. As we move up, you've got your fuel pressure, engines 1, 2, 3, and 4, and your ambient air outside temperature. As we move over here to the middle, you've got your engine RPM, 1, 2, 3, and 4, and your manifold pressure, 1, 2, 3, and 4. Okay, we're going to go to the center section. You've got your climb rate, your turn and slip indicator, airspeed indicator, and altimeter. We've got landing indicator, early form of ILS, your compass, attitude indicator, cage, uncage. And down here we have our prop feathering switches, 1, 2, and 3, and 4. Those would allow you to turn the propellers from their normal configuration to a configuration where they're parallel to the wind to allow less drag in case you have an engine failure and have to shut down an engine. On the left side of the panel, you've got the co-pilot's oxygen, pilot's oxygen, voltage regulator, hydraulic pressure, suction, vacuum gauge, vacuum indicator light, oil pressure emergency system, bomb bay doors open, and bombs away light. This is a compass directional card for the pilot. Pilot directional indicator. This allowed the bombardier and the pilot to coordinate on the bomb run. You've got your compass, set the direction, turn to that heading. You've got a radio compass where you could tune to a radio frequency and aim towards that direction. Over here we have some light switches and some nice plates, Flying Fortress, and over here the serial number of the aircraft, engine, and type, and a warning. Oh, down here we also have our supply warnings for our oxygen systems. Also, this panel is in the configuration that it would have come out of the factory in World War II. A lot of the flying examples of B-17s now that you see have been updated to more of an FAA standard for safer operation. So that is the panel that I have out here. I have the center console section inside, so let's go check that out. Okay, we are inside. I don't have this mounted on the panel in my garage. It's just kind of in the way it kind of mounts on there and sticks out. So I have it on display in my house. So we'll go through this. You have your ignition switches for all 4 engines, 1, 2, 3, 4. You got your master switch, and you have your ignition magneto switch for each engine. So each engine had 2 magnetos, right, left, off, and both. As we move up here, you've got your fuel, shut-off valves, and your guard to prevent you from accidentally shutting the fuel off, and your fuel boost pumps to get fuel pressure for engine starting. Got some lighting controls, your gear up and down, more lighting controls, flaps up and down. And as you come down here, we've got our cowl flaps to allow the engine cooling. On the ground, you would typically have them open, and then as you get to higher altitudes, you would close the cowl flaps. That allows air to go through the engine to cool it off and lower that cylinder temperature. So that is the panel.
All right, a few things I just wanted to mention real quick. The decals themselves, I actually got all the templates for that from a guy, B-17 Panels on Facebook. He was a gentleman that had built a few of these panels, and he was nice enough, kind enough to give me the all of digital copies of his decals, so I was able to reproduce those, and so I appreciate his help there. Also, I had to put a lot of structure. You'll see dowel rods that I failed to mention earlier on the top of the panel, and that provides more strength for it because these gauges weigh a lot. Also, some of the gauges, because of their size, needed to be supported from underneath, so you have to build some structure underneath the gauge itself. Well, that about wraps it up for this one. I hope you enjoyed the video, maybe learned something. Thanks for coming to CM's Garage, my YouTube channel. If you have any questions or comments, leave them below. I really appreciate the feedback. Also, I've got plenty of other projects that I've done, so go ahead and check those out. And if you're enjoying my channel, please subscribe. That would help me out, and like the videos. Thank you so much. Have a good day. We'll see you again.